Good afternoon, everybody. I am Brad McManus, and I am the Water Resources Group Manager at Georgia Department of Transportation. And just want to say good afternoon. I want to thank, and it's really good to see everybody here. I guess I was going to say that too. After, I guess, 2018 was the last time we had an in-person meeting. We had one in 2020. But it's so good to see everybody, get to see everybody's faces, and see everybody in person. I wanted to thank our gold sponsors, U.S. Engineering Solutions, and they're right out there as you turn. If you come out of the door there and turn to the right, you can't miss them. Also, I'd like to thank our silver sponsors, Aulick Engineering, Gresham Smith, Neil Schaefer, Northwest Hydraulic Consultants, and Moffitt and Nickel, and RK&K. And then we also have a sponsor for the icebreaker, Ayers and Associates. Also like to thank just the wealth of knowledge that we have from the presenters. We just have a huge, fantastic lineup of presentations that are coming. I also want to thank Georgia Tech. I mean, this is a fantastic facility, fantastic rooms, a very historic building, a lot of things to look at and be interested in as we listen to these wonderful presentations. I'd like to thank the steering committee. I know that I'm part of it, but there was a lot of big help that we got from a lot of members of the steering committee. So I'm very appreciative of the hard work that they put in. We couldn't have done it without their help. Now for a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, the exits are right here on my left and right. Your left and right as well. Bathrooms. The women's bathroom is going to be towards the crystal room. So if you come out of here and head to the left, that's where the women's bathroom, men's bathroom is on the right. There's also bathrooms downstairs if you go down the stairs for that. And so with that, I'd like to welcome a very special presenter. She is the chief engineer for the Georgia Department of Transportation, someone I've known for quite some time. That's a position she's held since January of 2015. And of course, as a lot of chief engineers are, but she's in charge of engineering, construction, project management for the department, oversees a $2.5 billion statewide capital program. Meg also oversees statewide maintenance, traffic operations, and intermodal activities. She's earned a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Vanderbilt, but she's also earned a master's degree in civil engineering from Georgia Tech, and is also, of course, a registered engineer. So please put your hands together and welcome Meg Pirkle to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. And I think we've known each other almost 30 years. It's been a really long time. But it's great to be here with you all today. Welcome to Georgia. Welcome to Atlanta. The weather's kind of participating. It's pretty nice out there. So it can be pretty hot here in the summer. But it's great to be here on behalf of Georgia DOT and Georgia Tech. I'm glad to be welcoming you to the 10th biannual NHEC conference. Do you call it NHEC, or do you always say it all the way out? But and even though we've been doing in-person meetings for a while, it certainly is great to be back in front of people and to be with friends and coworkers and colleagues and talk about things. I feel like we accomplish so much more when we have a chance to talk face to face. And since I have the privilege of welcoming you here, I'll also let you know that when you're here in Georgia as a visitor, $5 a night of your hotel fee goes to transportation. So we are always glad to have conferences in Georgia because you actually are helping us pay for improvements to our system. And I'd also like to talk a little bit about what we have going on in Georgia, some of the opportunities and challenges that we are facing. And especially now that we have a new federal infrastructure bill, and I'm sure you've all heard a lot about that, but the guidance is rolling out fast and furious from FHWA, and we're all doing our best to keep up. So we're kind of in crazy times right now, aren't we? It's like we have money, we got a new federal bill, but the supply chain is still totally jacked up, and materials and labor, if you can actually get them, are costing way too much money. And in Georgia, even though with all these challenges, growth is still just off the charts. I mean, development is going like gangbusters, and our construction and our building permits has not slowed down at all. So business is really booming in Georgia. We're back to having the busiest airport in the world, and we have record growth at the Port of Savannah. And we've had 2 new automakers announce that they are moving to Georgia, Rivian and Hyundai. They're going to be manufacturing electric vehicles here in Georgia, along with Kia, who is already here. And if you were to try to buy a house right now in Atlanta, I mean, you would be outbid by 23 other buyers. I mean, you can't even buy property here in the metro area. And it's pretty tough in some other parts of Georgia as well. So people are definitely moving here, and Georgia is growing. But along with that comes everything is costing so much money. And even though we have so many projects to build, you really can't even get what you need to get the work done. We're seeing an average increase of about 35% on our construction bids compared to our engineers' estimate for letting projects. And that doesn't even include the increases that we're seeing just in paying for professional services, engineers, buying right away, and utility relocation. I mean, the costs are off the chart. So from day one, which for us is on July 1, we already know that what we plan to deliver this year has got to be cut by a third because we're going to have to address those increased costs. And aside from paying more, it's a challenge to even get it. We're seeing like a 12-month delay just on getting signal strain poles and concrete. You know, in Atlanta, you have to work at night, and our contractors order concrete, and they get about 50% of what they order on the regular. They can't even do the work they were planning to do on a daily basis. So there's some challenges, and that's just because they can't get truck drivers. So whether it's the worst of times or the best of times, this is where we are. And when you're working on your house, you can say, well, you know, I'll pour that driveway later or build the deck next year when it's a little cheaper, but when it's your agency's mission to maintain and improve transportation, we don't have a choice. We have to keep right on trucking along with all of y'all, and you know, I'm sure your DOT is the same. And you know, you're paying a premium, but you still got to get the work done and make sure that the improvements and the safety improvements are out there for the citizens, everyone traveling through Georgia. So as I said, you know, we had a federal law passed last November. It finally got funded in March. The federal fiscal year ends in September, so we had about 6 months to spend a full year's worth of money. And, but that's okay. We'll take all the money we can get. And it added about $1.2 trillion over a 5-year cycle for transportation, which having regular funds for 5 years, no matter what it is, I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. So it really was great news for all of us for what we do. And so for Georgia, this means about $350 million more a year than what we would normally have. And since I said, we're paying about 35% more for our projects, it's not really an increase, but it's helping keep us afloat, and that's great. But 2 things that came out of this bill that are really great, especially for what y'all do, is, you know, there's very much a focus on bridges. And in Georgia, we take really good care of our bridges in Georgia, so we got the minimum amount of money. We're a little bit bitter about that. But it's a great thing, though, to have money being put into bridge infrastructure, and that's about $45 million a year for Georgia. For some states that have a very comparable sized system, they're getting, you know, almost 6 times that. So for the states that need it, they're getting money to repair and replace bridges. But another cool program in the federal infrastructure bill is the PROTECT program, which really is for planning and resilience and looking at evacuation routes and at-risk coastal infrastructure. And it's all about increasing the resilience of our transportation infrastructure, which is something that's really needed. So that's kind of exciting too. Because as you know, we've seen a lot of really historic events in the past decade, and the picture on the top right there is the downtown connector here in Atlanta, which if you didn't take the train from the airport, you probably were on this road. And you know, it's something that we've all got to deal with, and that's why we're here, to make sure that we are taking care of our infrastructure and building it to be resilient. We also have a lot of aging infrastructure. This bridge, which is a swing span bridge down in Savannah, affectionately known as the Houlihan Bridge, it gets hit by trucks on the regular. And so it's always a bad day when we get a call that a truck has hit the truss of the Houlihan, and we're repairing it at least twice a year. Fortunately, it's under contract now to be replaced, but it's definitely a challenge dealing with the aging infrastructure. And it's a challenge that we all are facing. So we've increased our bridge maintenance program. Georgia spends a lot of money on bridges, regardless of what the additional funding was. We already spend about $340 million a year just on bridge replacements. And a lot of those bridges are over water, and we have a big program ahead in the future as well. So what are we doing to address the challenge of resilient infrastructure? We're looking at new approaches and new technology. We're using climate data to update hydrology, and I think you guys just had a workshop on this, and scour countermeasures. And this conference is also going to touch on some other new approaches for watershed approach, updates to manuals, holistic approaches to risk management, and some new technologies like 2D models and computational fluid dynamics. Did I get that right, Brad? Thank you. So this is all really great, and Georgia DOT is rapidly expanding the number of bridges and culverts and streams that we analyze with 2D models, and we've incorporated bridge monitoring so that we always know when one of our bridges is touched by water or overtopped. And we inventory our drainage systems, and it's all in GIS, and we're incorporating risk management, risk-based management as a way to prioritize our maintenance needs there. We're investing in our manuals to make sure they're all staying current. And we do a lot of collaboration, like with the City of Atlanta and UGA and the American Riverkeeper. We had an I-20 bioretention basin project that was a great example of collaboration. And then, of course, research is always vital, and DOTs play a huge role in funding research. So a big part of working ahead towards a positive future is gatherings like this today, because we all need to work together, share our successes and our failures, and push each other to move towards innovation. And that's how we keep things moving. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Brad, for asking me to be here today. And of course, the great work that your group does is so important, and the work that you all do is so vital to good transportation infrastructure in this entire nation. So without a doubt, the challenges to delivering transportation are going to continue and grow, but I think with gatherings like this is how we stay abreast and ready to meet those challenges. So again, welcome to Georgia. I wish you all a successful conference, and I now have the privilege of introducing your keynote speaker, who is Dr. Brian Bledsoe. Brian Bledsoe is Georgia Athletic Association Distinguished Professor in Resilient Infrastructure and founding director of the Institute for Resilient Infrastructure Systems at the University of Georgia. Brian holds degrees from Georgia Tech, North Carolina State University, and Colorado State University, and has over 30 years of experience as a civil and environmental engineer, hydrologist, and environmental scientist in the private and public sectors. Before entering the professorate, he worked as a consulting engineer and surveyor, and for the state of North Carolina as the watershed restoration engineer and coordinator of the state's non-point source program. Brian was promoted to full professor with tenure in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Colorado State University prior to moving back home to Georgia in 2016. Brian's research is focused on infrastructure systems, stormwater and flood management, water quality, fluvial geomorphology, river engineering, and ecosystem restoration. He received a National Science Foundation Career Award in 2006, served as a Fulbright Scholar in Chile in 2008, was elected a Fellow of the American Society of Civil Engineers in 2017, and is past president of the American Ecological Engineering Society. Welcome, Dr. Bledsoe.